I'd like to call to order the meeting for the Lansing Charter Commission. The day's date is May 6th, 2025. I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Adam Simon.
Present.
Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Bauer.
Present.
Commissioner Boyd. Here. Commissioner Dowd. Commissioner Jeffries.
Here.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Coe. Commissioner Washington. There are 7 members present at quorum. Commissioners Anderson and Lopez are absent.
I would ask that both Commissioner Lopez and Commissioner Anderson be excused, have an excused absent, please.
So they're not coming at all?
They will not be here tonight at all. Now's the time to have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it is adopted. Motion be in order to approve the April 29th, 2025 minutes. Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, they are approved. Now's the time for public comment.
Okay, we have Fred McLaughlin, followed by Amanda Castillo. You'll have up to 3 minutes to address the commission.
Okay, some of this is going to be a little repetitive, but I want to repeat the order of things under which the commission has done this entire effort. I really think it should have started with Article 5, with the boards and commissions, which I take to be the work of the city, and the management of those boards and commissions I take to be the executive branch and the legislative branch. And that's what I mean by wrestling with the work that's to be done before you get around to the people who are going to be doing the work. And that's what I have meant by the cart before the horse. Something that in a quote by Einstein said, if somebody gave me 60 minutes to figure out how to save the planet, he said I'd spend the first 59 minutes of it defining the problem. To me, the problems to be solved by the city are in the boards and commissions. It's the work of those boards and commissions, and in particular, I've singled out the Planning Commission as being particularly important. And I think it should be named simply the Planning Commission. There's no need to be redundant and bring up one element of the planning that goes on for the city and make reference to economic development. There are many other aspects of the city. Certainly the most important element is the community itself. And but planning is sufficient. So also I've observed that I think one of the things that would be really helpful, and an effort's already being made by Brian, I forget his last name, he's not on council, but he has made a pretty significant effort of listing all the meetings that the city has every day, every week, so that a person doesn't need to get familiar with the use of the city's website in order to find out what's going on that day. You can at least get a hint from the titling of the commission's boards, and so committees and so forth. Let's see. Got too many notes here. So to me, the most important element of the city is the community, and I think it's important that the city present itself in ways that that people can get familiar with the city. I noticed the Planning Commission once again canceled one of its meetings. I think any meeting that no boards should cancel any of their meetings, that they should be, use it as an effort to get to know people and invite them in for outreach. Thank you.
Next we have Amanda Castillo.
Good evening. So
I actually have to kind of change my speech a little bit because I got this notice here, but I guess I just want to extend my gratitude to the board for all of you for agreeing to give myself and the other co-authors of the proposal that I had spoken about last week the chance to have a meeting with you to present our case. It really does actually mean the world to us. We have been working very hard on this issue very diligently together, and so we are just hoping to meet with one of the commissioners sometime this week to go over the language, and I'm just grateful that you're all open to hearing our thoughts and our ideas to truly establish Lansing as an equitable, fair, sustainable, and loving community for everyone. So just wanted to extend my gratitude to the board tonight. Thank you.
Ms. Castile?
Yeah.
Is it possible to get a contact information for you?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
How would you?
Would you like
We have
to?
someone in the back?
I can put it up
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, that was it for public comment.
Okay, moving on to officers' reports under the chair. Next week, just a heads up, we'll be taking up Article 7. We're going to have Crystal Thomas, who's the Chief Financial Officer for the city, to be present to go over that particular article. In my view, it's pretty much a process article, and I think she would be very helpful in that review. She also has, obviously, information and experience in some of the investments and might be able to address some of those issues as well. Commissioner Boyd.
Will we be voting on any aspect of Article 7 next week, or will we just be hearing and talking?
No, we'll be going through it line by line, and hopefully she, as she is present, she can, say, this needs to get updated, this is
Thank
how
you.
we're currently doing it. But we're kind of getting up close to that wall, so I think we've got to take as much advantage of that as possible. Madam Vice Chair, do you have a report?
No report.
Mr. Clerk.
I do not have a report.
Okay, under old business, as you can see, our attorney is not here yet. She is on the way. So in terms of old business and all of the articles mentioned there, we'll come to those when she gets here. Under new business, we have Article 8. We could start running through that and see how far we can get. When she gets here, we'll stop and then go back to the other articles. So everybody should have in their packet a copy of Article 8. There was also sent to us a request to consider certain language in 8-401.1 regarding changing the lowest responsible bidder to the best value to the city language. And that's a whole different process that we're going through right now in considerations. The building trade sent us a request to look at that, and we'll certainly do so. So that's all the information we have. Let's just begin by going through each one of the chapters. Chapter 1 deals with the regulatory power of the city, so 8-101.1. Is there a motion to support that? Or does anybody have any questions? It's been moved and supported.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, does pass. Point 2.
So moved.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes. 8-102, issuance of licenses. Yes, Commissioner Bauer.
And that authority is under the clerk, am I right? With licenses and,
Business licenses generally, yes, but this refers generally to licenses and permits, I think, which permits
different
may
departments?
go through other departments.
Okay.
So, yes, many do, but not necessarily all licenses go
Okay.
through.
Other discussion? Is there a motion to support? I'm sorry, go ahead. Commissioner Kui.
When it says requesting specific license, is that only for building purposes, or what about our state regulated, like through Laura? Because it doesn't specify.
Well, this would only be city-issued licenses. If it's licensed through the state, that's a different license. And depending on the level of regulation within the state licensure, there may or may not be the ability for the city to license an item. Just as an example, we used to license towing companies, and then the state's statute became so broad that it fully encapsulated the area, and we were barred. We were no longer allowed to license towing companies, so we got out of that.
Okay.
But some things require both a state and a local license. For example, marijuana requires both. And many things, state law expressly allows us to have local regulation. So there's a very large mix of the way licenses
The way-
work.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Those opposed? I see our attorney has, I'm sorry? And Ben supported it. I heard him say it, so. All right, we have our attorney with us now. And Kristen, what we did is we just started going through Article 8, and we'd take that up until you got here. And I think what we'll do is jump back to under Old Business A and just start going through your memos that you sent to us and then kind of work off of that. So if you could, please take it away.
Alrighty, thank you. I apologize for the delay. So I believe the first memo in your packet from me is on page 9, which involves Article 3 regarding council investigations and city employees. And I had a little bit of a typo in the description here. As you may recall, the commission's already gone through this provision, but there have been some concern raised. So what we're looking at primarily is there's some changes that were made in section 3-206, but I think the primary concern is more with 3-207. And I believe there was a correspondence in your packet today from various union membership expressing some concern about whether and how this affects collective bargaining rights and an assertion that it violates collective bargaining. I've done a review and provided some legal guidance on here. I think what's important to note is your role as the Charter Commission is developing revisionary language that then gets submitted to the voters. And once adopted, then collective bargaining may or may not become an issue. But merely changing the language and even submitting it to the voters itself does not create any collective bargaining issue. It's not until there is no collective bargaining obligation to have to bargain on anything at this point, because it's really a legislative function. But the case law is clear that once a topic of a charter touches on collective bargaining, that's when the rules apply. And so the issue is really whether the provisions of the council investigations touch on what's called a mandatory subject of collective bargaining or not. As discussed in my memo, if it is, or to the extent that something may touch on an issue, it's really the obligation of the unions and the city to then collectively bargain with each other over those provisions that are mandatory subjects once approved by the voters. So that obligation doesn't happen until that vote goes through. And then the two sides get together and then they can discuss how the provisions will be implemented consistent with collective bargaining. And I understand that's the middle of a contract. That's certainly things that, depending on, if and when the charter is approved, that's all things that can be discussed. I did get into a little bit of a discussion in the memo about whether something is mandatory or permissive. I think what's important to note when you really look at the language that this body recommended as being revised in the charter it requires cooperation. And really, if that's approved, then it would be up to the parties in the collective bargaining realm to discuss what that means and make sure that that complies with para and that all complies with what the collective bargaining agreements currently say, and then going into future negotiations, what that can mean to the extent it applies to employees. But I think what's important to note is that the council itself is currently, I mean, they're not the entity that is the employer, or, they're part of the city, but it's really the mayor that is the sort of quote-unquote management. So to the extent that these investigations may touch on something that could be an employee investigation, that's where you really have an issue about whether that is a mandatory subject or not. And it's the way that the language is worded currently, it's not that all of this will be, because that's not a current or a function of the board to deal with these matters, but to the extent it could be, that's really at the time where they can develop the language and the agreement and the collective bargaining. So I do not see the current revision as being a violation of para. That being said, if there's something that you wanted to discuss, potential clarification or revision or something that you wanted to do, you certainly could consider it. I was thinking about that in light of the language that was provided in the public correspondence. You could, if you thought it, if it's something you wanted to do, if you wanted to clarify, you could say that certain provisions that had been revised do not apply to union employees, or it had, nothing in these provisions allows the city council to get involved in matters of employee discipline, or something like that, if that is something that you wanted to clarify in here. But again, you all are not the labor negotiators. It would be up to those entities to develop what that language means.
Discussion? Commissioner Kui?
So, and I hear you about talking about would you say the para?
Yeah, sorry, Public Employee Relations Act.
Right, but again, once a collective bargaining agreement has been done, and I'm looking at the gray area, someone is subpoenaed or to be a witness or what have you, their union representative tell them, no, they don't have to do that. So say I'm in the middle of bargaining and the contract expires, then what happens in a case like that? Because now you're not covered under the CBA.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think that in a situation like that, there would still be rights under labor laws in terms of how that applies. And again, it's not all investigations or all matters that the legislation, or the council as a legislative body could take up. It's really matters that affect terms, conditions of employment, and whether that is an employee investigation. And again, it's in that gray area that's where, to the extent it is a mandatory subject of collective bargaining, that's where the parties get together and deal with that and define what that means in terms of doing an addendum to the current CBA, or renegotiating, or having that come up during their negotiations in the following collective bargaining agreement.
Well, I would like to see in the body of that then, just like you said, pending the orders or the language of a collective bargaining agreement, that they should be pertaining to those employees that are covered under the union. That it should be in the body of that 207. So there's no gray area about it.
There's always gray. We're not going to be able to legislate away. But I guess I want clarification as to what you would want clarified, because there's sort of a few things if we go through the language in here. So first of all, when we look at one of the additions you made in January was the right to compel the attendance of city officers at its meetings. So city officers are not employees. So your changes do not allow the city council to require attendance of employees. So I think that's different than some of the language that had been kind of raised to this board about collective bargaining rights. But when we get down to point 4, it shall be the duty of every officer employee to cooperate with any inquiry or investigation of city council. And what does that mean? It includes the compilation and production of information requested as authorized by the charter, unless the information is exempt. So it's really, what does that cooperate mean? And to the extent you want to have, cooperation does not impair any sort of rights under a collective bargaining agreement or something, we could look at that. When we get into point 5, this is sort of the teeth here, is no person shall willfully and without justification or excuse obstruct or interfere with an investigation. Again, what does that mean in the context of a labor agreement? It's up to the parties of that agreement to negotiate together as to what that means to get to an agreement, to the extent that that applies to mandatory subjects of collective bargaining. And then one of the issues I anticipate is an issue for the unions is this subsection A, that if you willfully or without justification obstruct or interfere, that the council could recommend that they be reviewed for discipline. So I anticipate that to the extent there's potential aspects of that complying with employment, that those are sort of the issues. So if you wanted, we could clarify that none of this is intended to deal with employee investigations or touch on employee investigations or discipline, and anything would be subject to para. We could do something like that if that's what the body wants. Again, merely adopting this language, even with the limitation provisions, if this is a subject of mandatory collective bargaining, the city and the unions will still be required to collectively bargain on the implementation afterward. But providing additional clarification, if you want to, could certainly help the parties through that negotiation too.
Commissioner Washington?
Thank you. I didn't bring my copy of the correspondence from the unions regarding this language, and I don't have a copy here. So after reading this and going over it and making the considerations of what they have said, I am in favor of removing this or any person or committee authorized by it for the purposes. I would like to see that go away along with what the unions have recommended. And also, in all three of these, I would like to see that go away. And as far as compelling the attendance of city officers at its meetings, I will not be in favor of that unless officers means department heads. I am not in favor of compelling any employee of the city to have to come to a meeting, because there again, it puts them in a precarious situation, and we do have union rules that we have to go by, and I don't think we should write something in the charter that would require us to go to expansive measures to describe it in the charter. I would rather keep it simple and get rid of that language. And as far as, I think, 4 through 5, A, B, C, D, I think they were in agreement with what we put in here. So I don't think they recommended any changes with that, but I am going to vote in favor of what the union has recommended.
Commissioner Dowd, and then Commissioner Bauer.
So looking at this a little more, I have some concerns about city council being able to make recommendations on an employee's discipline. That's not the council's position. That is an HR issue. And so and I also don't like the idea that the city council would have the ability to go into an employee and say, produce me all of this information, which could be very costly, very time consuming, without a council member really knowing what that entails, right? We've got channels to get information already throughout, and in fact, the current language states that the charter has the authority to make investigations into the affairs of the city and the conduct of any city agency. But to have the legal ability to go up to an employee and demand things from them, I just think that we made a wrong move on there.
Commissioner Bauer.
And I'm not sure, I couldn't hear Commissioner Washington very well, so I might be agreeing with what you guys already said, I hope. But I would favor, I had concerns in the beginning about the position we were putting employees in. I would recommend, and maybe this is what you said, and I couldn't hear it clearly, but number 4, just strike and employee. And then I would get rid of 5 and 6. And that might be what you've already said. If it is, I apologize.
pretty close. Any other comments? I have a couple comments. If we go back and just revisit why we did this in the first place, we were asked by council, I think in particular, to look at providing stronger language in the charter so that they would be able to get information that they're asking for. And, that was the context behind some of this language. It's certainly an unintended consequence to go so far as what appears that we may have done in terms of the concern of our labor partners here in the city. This city has enjoyed a very good relationship between labor and management, and certainly there's not an attempt by this commission to put a stake through that, but we want to be able to act in a positive way. So I share what both Commissioner Washington and Bauer have said in terms of what they are looking at to excise from this. I think also the other provision that I think is somewhat associated with this is Article 2-302.2, D as in dog. It's more on the administrative side, being able to call in. And if you read the language, I didn't quite, it kind of struck me differently as I read it a couple of months later, that it almost looks like council could actually fire the mayor. And, that goes pretty far. So I would be looking at this section that is in front of us now, but I'd also want to address Section 2-302.2D, and with the idea that I would delete the language that we put in there as well. So I don't think we have that in front of us here tonight, but I think we should bring that all together. Yeah. Yes, Commissioner Boyd.
Would we just be deleting it, or would we be repealing it? Because I remember that vote. That was the one where we talked about protecting the employees
Yep.
if blah, blah, blah. I'm with the majority here. I would like to repeal it, what we agreed to do. I think that's the smart thing for this commission to do. When we make a mistake, we own up to it and we
Yeah.
change it. So,
Yeah, we'll get the process down. It might be a motion to reconsider, or, well, we're past that time, but in any event, we'll bring back something in terms of what the correct procedure would be. But Kristen, I think what people are looking at, if I've got it wrong, please shout it out now, but in Article 3-207, as it exists now, points, in point 1, the right to compel and attend the attendance of city officers at its meeting, and then all of point 4, point 5, and point 6. I think there's a desire to remove that language. And then if you could go to 2-302, point 2D, in the language there it states, is determined by city council to have engaged in misconduct in the performance of official duties of the office. So the position of an elective city officer appointee shall be forfeited if the officer is determined by city council to have engaged in misconduct in the performance of official duties of the office. So, that could be quite a few people, up to and including any elected official, the mayor, the city clerk. So I would ask that language be deleted as well, or repealed, or whatever it is we're going to do. If you could bring that back to us at the next meeting, I would appreciate that. Commissioner Washington.
I may have missed, excuse me. I know that we're looking to repeal or reconsider 3-7, 3-207, yada, yada, but are we also going to look to repeal this, or any person or committee authorized by it for the purpose? Also, that is what I requested that we have removed.
I'm sorry, where are you?
Right here.
Okay, so all three of those?
Yes.
Okay, So.
That was by recommendation of the unions
okay.
also, and I think it makes sense.
In 3-206, point 1, 2, and 3.
Correct.
The language that we put in, would like to remove that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other conversation? Okay, so we'll bring that stuff, that language and those changes back with the correct procedure for next week. And we'll go from there. Kristen, we do thank you for all your work on this.
Okay, so I have my notes on that one. All right, so next is, find the page here. Next item starts on page 14 of your packet. It is Article 4, Article 5. It should be Article 4, Chapter 5, I believe. No, excuse me, Article 4-308. This is the language on sustainability, and actually it does involve Article 4 and Article 5. So first is the Article 4 on sort of the employee aspect or the departmental aspect of it. So after discussion from the prior meetings, the recommendation is to, it sounded like from the discussion, you weren't necessarily wanting to add or look at adding an additional department for sustainability, but kind of enshrining what currently exists is just kind of putting it into that public service department. And so we have proposed language here to just simply add that language as part of the work for the Department of Public Service. There was also a request or discussion to look at whether to create a charter enshrined sustainability board, again, to actually have it in the charter as a board that exists as in an advisory capacity, although the sort of nuts and bolts of that would be developed in an ordinance. You can, so we did develop that language, and although it's not in red, this Chapter 7, it would be 5-701 would be all new language, if that's something you're interested in. The way this is crafted, you could certainly adopt the change to the Public Service Department without adopting the Environmental Affairs Board language as is. If you wanted just Sustainability Environmental Affairs Board, you could certainly do that, but I think this would require some additional language change if you don't put that language in Article 4.
Commissioner Washington.
Thank you, Chair Jeffries. I just want to express my position on this. I am not in favor of creating another board, a sustainability board. I think if this section is going to be under public service, we already have a public service advisory board, and I think that information should come through that board also, rather than separating it out from the rest of the Public Service Advisory Board. We have a lot of boards, and I think to compile them makes more sense, and they will just have to ensure that they have some. And I know a lot of the people on that board, and they are very concerned with the environment and sustainability already. So I personally won't support a separate board. I think it can be integrated with the Public Service Board we already have.
Other comments, Commissioner Boyd?
Is this an effort to enshrine what the mayor is already doing?
It sounds like it. If you recall, we've had several discussions about this earlier this year. There is a Sustainability Commission. It's an advisory board that was established by the mayor. And we reviewed the minutes of their various board meetings that they've had this year, and they've had discussions about approaching the commission and talking about making it a board within the charter. The eventuality of that discussion was that they, at that point, did not want to do that. There was no interest to doing that. I think the idea of the proposed language in the memo under 4-308.2, where it recognizes sustainability, environmental affairs being within public service, that's not creating a board, it's just putting that function there. I would certainly support that. But in terms of actually creating the board, I agree with Commissioner Washington that you know, we took out all of those boards. How many boards we take out? 15 or something like that? And now we're starting to put some of those back in. I just don't think we need it at this point. The board, the existing commission doesn't want to do that. You know, if we're going to go down that road, I think we should have a conversation with the mayor. It's his advisory board. And not that we can't usurp him, but I'd like to hear his views on it as well. But I don't believe it's necessary at this time. I think the language that's in there, you know, establishes something within the charter that recognizes sustainability and environmental affairs activities as a function of the public service department. So that's what I would support.
I agree with what you're saying, and I would support Section 4-308 as well, including the word sustainability under public service. Thank you.
Commissioner Dowd, I'm sorry. Good. Commissioner Washington.
Just really quickly, for the folks that this may rub the wrong way, every mayor has the right and the ability to form a board under his leadership. So it's not like it wouldn't ever happen or they couldn't have it for a term of a mayor or something. We just don't need to enshrine it in the charter.
Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Cui.
I just thought one of the, and again, we've had quite a few of our constituents come to our meetings and discuss this and all that, but I just thought one of the things that they brought up was the advisory board. A lot of the suggestions and everything never got implemented. So I thought the reason we were looking at creating it as a hard board where it would be exchanged somewhere like within the budget of the mayor, where those things didn't just get blew off. That's how I took meeting with them and discussing how they wanted to look at the sustainability part of it, where the board, advisory board, really didn't have any teeth on that. Am I correct?
Okay. Other discussion? All right, is there any motions? Commissioner Dow.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the 4-308 language as proposed. That includes the sustainability, including environmental affairs, activities, and environmental justice within the city, in just that section.
And I support.
It's been moved and supported on that particular motion. Are there any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes. Any other
Nay.
motions?
I was nay for nay.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
That's why I said nay on that.
Oh, you said, okay. Passes with Commissioner Cui voting no. Okay. No other motions? Commissioner Bauer.
I do move that we adopt Chapter 7, the Sustainability and Environmental Affairs Board, in the language following 5701 and 5702, so that section.
It's been moved and supported.
Has it been supported?
Yes. Commissioner Washington? Okay. Yeah, I would just, again, those minutes that I passed out to you folks, there was conversations in there. One of the reasons that they didn't want to move forward with the board is that there were several board members that would lose their position on the board. One did not live in the city, one worked for the Board of Water and Light, and under the rules that we had, they would have to forfeit those positions. And so there was some concern by, I think by the board, or the commission in general, about wanting to have those folks stay on. It's a very good performing board. They're very active, they do a lot of stuff. And
Why would they have this forfeit their position?
in the charter, it says that if you're an employee of the Board of Water and Light, you can't serve on any boards or commissions. And the residency issue. But, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
But again, just because they would lose their positions, does that not mean we're not going to stand for what the board could actually do?
I agree with that. I think I'm just trying to explain that there seemed to be a good amount of sediment on that board that they wanted to maintain be able to have them maintain their membership because of the work that they're doing. And in terms of my takeaway with the issue about not getting the resources that they need, I mean, there is a money issue there. But the way that the minutes read is that they were setting up meetings with the mayor to go over their agenda and to make specific requests. I don't think it wasn't that they were not being heard. I think they were being heard. I don't know what the results were of those meetings, but anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that. So, any other discussion? Commissioner Washington?
And I won't be supporting another board. I think this can be done through what the mayor has going already, and that can continue if need be. And they do a lot of this in the BWL Commission. I mean, a lot of this is already being done, but it sounds like we're able to call in experts if we don't make this an actual board. But to the conversation of the board doesn't have teeth, if you do this, it won't have any more teeth than any other board. It's an advisory board. It's not a commission. It's not an administrative thing. It's not a department. So like I said, rather than enshrining all of these things into the charter, I will not support it.
Other comments? Commissioner Cui?
I would just like to find out what kind of things the advisory board that currently has anything that they have proposed got implemented, and why not, besides the cost factor.
I thought I mean, I can't give you an example, but that was not my takeaway, that they were being ignored. But that could be. Got 3 minutes here. Any other comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Dow.
Yeah, I think the conversations I had with folks that were talking about this, they were looking to form a department, right? A department of, not a board or advisory board. And I don't know that this doesn't give necessarily budgetary means to what they're trying to do. This is simply an advisory board, which again can be done through a number of ways. So the request was really that we form a department of sustainability. And if we're not doing that, I don't know that this does what they're trying to do.
I see. Fair point. Good point.
Other questions, comments? All right, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Cui? Commissioner Washington?
No.
Commissioner Adams-Simon?
Abstain.
Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Bauer?
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd? No. Commissioner Dowd? No. Commissioner Jeffries?
No.
You have 2 yeas, 4 nays. The amendment is not adopted.
Commissioner Boyd?
Point of clarification, I'd like to know why Commissioner, Vice Chair abstained. Can you share?
I abstain because I'm kind of reviewing everything, so I didn't want to make a rash decision. And until, because we're going to have to come back and revisit this. But looking at the board, what I've heard from people in the community and stuff, I cannot say I am pro or against.
Okay, moving on, please.
Okay, the last memo is at page 29 of your packet. This is a discussion on changes to the current language of Article 6, Section 6-301, which is the non-discrimination clause. It also includes a provision on affirmative action. As we have said before, we recommended removing the affirmative action clauses from the charter, given more recent amendments to the Michigan Constitution. So in the language that we drafted, the proposed language on page 30, what we did is we looked at the work that the board had already done and the changes it had made in section 1-302, which is a very broad definition of a variety of protected classifications under a whole variety of laws in state and federal, but also for the city, it's also reflects the city's human rights ordinance. And so what we did is we did look at that in drafting this language and kept it largely the same as that other provision of 1-302, but what we did add are these last 2 sentences. Notwithstanding the above, nothing in this section prohibits consideration of a bona fide occupational qualification as defined by law. The next sentence is, it is permissible to give preferential treatment in hiring to veterans and their relatives as required by state and federal law. These two provisions are both the law in both state and federal law, but we also took that directly from the Human Rights Ordinance in the section on employment. So that's how we got to this language.
Commissioner Boyd, oh, sorry.
So, Kristen, I just have a question of clarification. So the proposed language is identical to what is required at the state level except for the last two sentences, correct?
All of this encapsulates, I would say, a body of non-discrimination law in both state and federal. You're not going to find an area of state law that says this specific thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Madam Vice Chair.
I move to adopt the proposed language.
Moved. Commissioner Washington.
I just have a really quick question, and I'll be supporting this, but I just have a really quick question.
Okay.
I understand preferential treatment and hiring to veterans, but why their relatives?
That's what's in the Human Rights Ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay,
I can,
okay.
Commissioner Cui.
I'm just curious.
no, dealing with veterans laws, what they try to do is support their spouses as well, because once they become civilians, they bring in the families, and they want to make sure that the spouses are, especially if they're deployed, that the spouses are deployed and have preferential treatment. That was my understanding. That is correct. Oh,
Okay.
All right.
I mean, there's a lot of things that come with military.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get my husband's
Yeah.
same reason.
Any other comments, questions? All right, on motion, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. Going back to Article 8. We're on Chapter 2 franchises, 8-201, limitations on franchise, point 1. Is there a motion? It's been moved. Is there support? Moved and supported. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes. Point 2. Looks like this has to be tidied up a bit. Should it read, the city may approve such ordinance only after public hearing has been held on it and after the guarantee named in it has filed with the city clerk its unconditional acceptance of all terms of the franchise? Okay. I'm sorry, is that not?
I apologize, I'm just like focusing on this a little bit. I do not recall franchises being performed by ordinance.
It goes through, it talks about ordinances. Should we come back to this then? Is that what
I
you're
think we
saying?
should, yes.
Okay. The whole section then? The whole, like 1 through 6?
Yeah,
Or the whole chapter?
yeah, sorry, yes, the whole chapter.
The whole chapter?
There-
Okay. Yeah, just a second. Yeah, see, it talks about, on the second page, the granting ordinance. So should we just go, all right, we'll come back to Chapter 2 next, at some other time. I don't know if we'll get to it next week.
I move support, so I'll, motion.
Okay,
I move support of number 2, so I'll withdraw that motion. Thank you.
thank you. All right, Chapter 3, Public Utilities, 8-301. Now, this concerns the Board of Water and Light.
oh,
We're on
chapter 3.
8-301. Do we need to be updating the services as we did in Chapter 5?
That was my question, if you wanted to do that. I
Yes.
think that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, 5-201 was updated to include chilled water, thermal energy, and then heat, including hot water. So we can, that's not verbatim, but that was kind of the additional language that was added.
Do you want to bring some language back with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll come back to that. 8-302. If you want to sell the board water and light, this is what you'd have to do. If you wanted to sell the board water and light, this is what you'd have to do. We're not suggesting that, Brianna, please. Okay.
Remember, when you're reviewing this, the Board of Water and Light is one aspect of it, but this also would include other utilities like the sewage, which is separate. So when you're looking at public utility, it's not just what exists now, but what could potentially exist. That's the same with franchises. So just kind of keep that language in mind as you're looking at that, looking over these provisions.
What would be some examples of public utility franchise? What falls under that?
Cable TV function a lot falls within there,
Okay.
providing franchises. So that's the one that comes up off the top of my head.
Huh, good. All right. Yeah, I mean, there's no proposed amendments. Is there support? Moved? Someone move? Moved and supported. All right. 8-302, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes. 8-303. Point 1.
Wouldn't we have to change the language?
Yeah, can you bring, great, thank you. So in terms of point 2, about the council may set just and reasonable rates, is that like a cable franchise then?
Well, or the sewage rates. The sewer one is the big
Oh,
one currently.
Yeah, okay, got it. Okay. Is there any questions on point 2? Is there? No. Is there a motion? It's moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. 8-304. So, in terms of point 1, in terms of the collection of unpaid charges for a public utility, this is other than BWL? Because the BWL has that responsibility.
Well, they're still may provide by ordinance, so they could still delegate that to the BWL to collect the ordinance. There's a lot of state laws when you're talking specifically for water in terms of those collections, but the city council could establish the ordinance on how to collect as well.
So that's in addition to what? Have they already done that and the BWL is following the ordinance, or is this something that they could do prospectively and say, we want to do rates differently, this is how they have to do it?
Well, point 1 is unpaid charges and liens, so it's not, so point,
sorry.
8-304 is not setting a
Yeah.
rate, it's collecting the amounts
Okay.
owed.
Well, I just see some cross purposes here with the Board of Water and Light. Do we? Yeah. So so both the city council and the Board of Water and Light can be responsible for setting up collection methods for unpaid charges?
I think it could establish an ordinance and then consistent with the powers it's already given the BWL on how to collect such things. Again, when we're talking about public utilities too, it could include utilities that are beyond the Board of Water and Light, so like your sewage rates.
All right. Commissioner Washington?
I agree with the Commissioner Stewart. I think we need
Excuse
a
me.
little bit more detail on this.
Okay. Commissioner Washington?
Thank you. I guess this is muddy, because if it's going to say anything, it should say city council shall provide an ordinance for the collection of unpaid charges, not, I don't know, it's muddy, but is there any public utility service other than the Board of Water and Light that any would go unpaid that they would have anything to do with? Sewer?
And cable.
Why don't we do this? Can you review 8304 in total?
Yeah.
Okay. And let's see how we can line that up with VWL. Thank you. Chapter 4, property. 8-401.1. This was the language that talks about an ordinance which will define lowest reasonable bidder in terms of the bid process that the city employs, and we were asked to consider looking at amending that to the best value to the city. It's a different process, a different consideration, and I don't know if it's for us to do that. I think we should talk to someone in the city about what that may take. Commissioner Washington?
When I read that and considered it, I have to agree, what is the best value for the city? Because we know when we contract for work in our homes, the lowest responsible bidder is not always the best value for your money. So I would definitely like to see that changed.
Well, and I think the city of Ann Arbor, I was looking at their ordinance that they have, and they have employed and actually did a charter amendment, including the best value to the city, and they still permit lowest responsible bidder for certain contracts between municipalities. I mean, there are some issues out there that we go into a bid system on that they will permit that to continue.
Could we say at the value of the city and responsible bidder included together?
Well,
That's
if,
saying two different things.
yeah, I think that might,
Now, I don't, like, eliminate the lowest and go at what's at the best value for the city and responsible bidder. But you can't tell them until they do the work.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner Washington.
I think best value for the city includes responsibility, because otherwise it would be lowest bidder. And Chair Jeffries, I don't think we need to divide it out. I think we want to do best value regardless of what it is. I can appreciate Ann Arbor did that, but I don't think we need to do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if, what laws are out there that the city is mandated to follow on certain purchases, but Kristen, could you look at that and bring back some language, please?
And we have a letter on that, too.
Yes, we do. Point 2, it talks about the office of the, Commissioner Kuwait.
The second part of that sentence, where it says it will result in the lowest overall cost of the city. If we're going, and again, if she's going to look at that whole part,
Yes.
I would look at the second part of that sentence also, and where it says in the manner of the lowest overall cost. Again, best value might not be the lowest overall cost, but if I'm making sure it's maintained, so both parts need to be changed, just not that one.
Moving on, point 2. Talks about the office of the controller. Is that, who would that be today, Chris?
We have a controller.
Oh, it is the office of controller. Do we? Okay. My bad.
We just got a new one.
Oh, there you go. Oh, I thought we lost that internal auditor. Okay, on point
Make a
2.
motion to
It's been
point 2.
moved. Is there support? Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. 8-402, sale of personal property, point 1. Is there a motion for support?
Support.
Commissioner Washington.
Just real quick, it says the city shall establish procedures by ordinance. Since council does the ordinances, should that language be the city council shall establish an ordinance? I don't know. I don't know how to do this. The city doesn't establish ordinances.
Yeah, it could go either way, I think. Well, I think if we're going to do that, we've got to go back and do that for a bunch of.
All the way across,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, so I think we
understood
Yeah.
that the city, who creates ordinances.
Right.
Okay. Number 1.1, is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved, supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Point 2. Is there a motion for
Support.
Moved, supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
8-403, purchase and sale of real property, point 1. And then this does spell out what goes in there. Is there a motion to support or to approve? Point 1. That's point 2. Is there a motion? It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, passes. Now, point 2.
I think I need to double check point 2 to see if this act is still
All
in
right.
place.
Good idea.
I think there's been an updated act.
Okay. Come back to that. Point 3. Are those days and times, is that consistent with state law? Kristen, do you think?
I'm going to have to check again with point
Okay.
2 just to make sure it's compliant with the, I believe it's the Uniform Condemnation Procedures Act, so.
Okay. Point 4. It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Point 5. Again, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes. And point 6. Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Chapter 6, cannabis,
Chapter 5?
or pardon me, Chapter 5. Go ahead, Commissioner Boyd.
I recommend, and this was the result of citizens who I spoke with when I was seeking this office, that references to marijuana be changed to cannabis to be accurate with today's language. So I would recommend that marijuana, in this instance, both in the title of the chapter and in the 501, be changed to from marijuana to cannabis. Thank you.
So
Is it necessary?
that was what I struggled with, is are you going to have does this now conflict with the Recreational Marijuana Act? So recall that this provision was added in 2013 at a time before the recreational law was legal, and this was at a time when a lot of people kind of had this groundswell movement to put provisions in the charter to essentially decriminalize marijuana. And you are right, marijuana is a sort of a pejorative term. Cannabis is now sort of the accepted term, although I believe legally it's still referred to as marijuana. But anyway, in looking over the recreational laws, it's actually 2.5 ounces for possession and 15 grams for concentrate. I just don't know that you need this anymore because state law already governs it. You could certainly, I mean, the question is really, does this, because the law has changed since this has been added, is this creating an unintended harm that didn't exist in 2013? That's the concern. Certainly, if you repeal this, state law, I believe, already provides greater protection. I was trying to think of a situation where this may provide greater protection somewhere in the ordinances, and I at least could not think of a scenario. Not to say it doesn't exist, but again,
Kristen, do you want to review this then?
I could if you want some more, it sounds like maybe you already want me to come back with some language to change it to cannabis, so I could certainly add some.
Well, we can as far as I'm concerned, we can eliminate it. I'm just saying if it stays in, it should be from marijuana to cannabis.
I move to strike Chapter 5 marijuana, 8-501.
been moved and supported. Commissioner Washington?
I don't know. When Brian Jeffries was on council, he worked really hard to get this decriminalized, and I'm not really sure
But he's
I'm
not a
willing to
perfect
have
person.
his work stricken from the charter.
The other thing I think to consider, this was passed as a charter amendment, and and I, of course, I understand what you're saying, and I buy into that, but, I mean, are people going to see this and say, hey, they took this out, and is this going to create that unintended consequences of, getting people to vote against this because they feel they've lost this right that they had under the charter? Commissioner Washington?
I think we just do what is responsible and use wisdom and not worry about what
I'm
people
just
might
throwing it out
think
there.
down the road.
Yeah.
I just think with the state laws and with it being made legal, it just isn't necessary.
Commissioner Kui?
If that's the case, could we just add a thing pertaining to the state law so that because the law changes, as far as they get.
I don't mind taking it out. I think there's a consequence if you do that.
That's what I'm saying, that we just left that
May not be a big.
chapter in there and then just said to apply to applicable
Well,
to state
Kristen,
law.
can you come back with some, if
That way,
there's-
this
if
is the
there's
best of
real
both
concern,
worlds.
If we're going to create a situation
They know
causing
we're-
more harm than
Right.
good, it's great. Thank you.
So we withdraw the motion?
Oh, who made the motion?
I
Oh,
did, to strike it.
do you want to remove it?
It was a motion,
And it was supported?
and it was supported.
So do you take your motion away?
No.
No? Oh, that's,
You have to vote me up or down. We have to vote on my motion.
oh, but, no, she can table.
But you have to
Yeah.
vote to table it, don't you?
Yeah. Is your support, do you keep your support or not on the motion? You supported it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. There's no support for the motion.
Oh, there's support.
Oh, there is support. Jeez. All right, so.
I'll
we
deal
have-
with him later.
All right, so we have a motion to table. I don't believe that's debatable.
No, we have, oh, okay. There was a
You-
motion on the
You can
floor.
bring them.
Yes.
You can
The
bring,
table takes that.
take the preempts. Okay. So on the motion to table, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No,
Let's do a roll call.
On the motion to table, Commissioner Kui?
Yes.
Commissioner Washington? No. Commissioner Adams Simon?
no.
Commissioner Bauer? Commissioner Boyd? Commissioner Dowd? Commissioner Jeffries?
Yes. Fails 4-3. So we're back to the main motion. Any other debate, discussion? Yes, to eliminate it. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So there were 2 votes?
Yes.
5-2?
Yep.
It is stricken from the charter. Okay, that wraps up Article 8 for tonight.
Point
Commissioner,
of clarification, Mr. Chair. So where do we stand with marijuana versus cannabis? I don't
It's not in
understand.
the words.
doesn't matter, does not matter.
So we're repealing the section, is that it?
The
Yes.
entire-
It's a non-issue.
But in honor of you, we will rename it cannabis.
All right. Okay, so that wraps up the business for tonight. That was for part of the section that was dealing with sustainability. Okay? All right. So- Trying to find my agenda. Do you have the agenda? No, your agenda, the board agenda. I don't know what I did with mine.
Right here.
Okay.
That's not just, go
Yep,
Public
sorry.
comment.
I'm sorry.
Word of public comment.
Public comment.
Okay, our forms this time don't clarify which session people want, so Fred McLaughlin, did you want to speak again? Okay, Amanda Castillo, would you like to speak again? Okay, then we have no additional public comment.
Okay, now's the time for commissioner remarks.
Okay. I had somebody call me, and they did a replay. They played back a portion of one of our commission meetings to me. It was incredibly embarrassing and indefensible. But what I would ask is that in the future, when we are on break, please ensure that your microphones are off. It was really embarrassing. Okay? Thanks.
My mic was off. Anybody else? All right, we're adjourned.
Nobody mentioned hemp. Nobody mentioned.
Their core strategy is to absorb the blows, regroup, and escalate on their own terms. It's meant to buy time for them to regroup. That's usually what non-state actors do. It's all very temporary.